Hello interwebs, welcome to Let's Fix Computers. When I was a kid in the early 90s, I had one of these. This is a Nikko Hurricane, or Nikko Hurricane. No, I'm going to pronounce it Nikko because it's probably Japanese. Anyway, I had one of these. It's a remote control car and it ran on 4 AA batteries and it was rubbish. I thought it was amazing at the time, but you couldn't drive this thing on grass. You needed concrete to drive this thing around, pavement or the road, you know. If you drove it off the curb, it would probably fall over and you'd have to run up and flip it over again and stuff like that. Then when I got a little bit older and technology moved on a little bit further, I bought one of these.
Tycho Rebound! It does stunts you have to see to believe. Tycho Rebound does in-your-face flips and a sidewinder. Tycho Rebound does almost anything your twisted mind can come up with, like hang time twists, 360 spins, radio-controlled rechargeable 6-speed jet turbo power for blinding speed, and incredible stunts. Battery pack required, sold separately. There's only one Tycho Rebound.
Things were better a decade ago. Anyway, so I was around my friend's house just before New Year's and he'd bought his kid a remote control car for Christmas. It's a modern thing. Modern remote control cars are awesome, man. I wish we had them when I was a kid. So my friend and I were reminiscing about when we used to have these things, and he couldn't remember what it was called because he really wanted to look it up and show his kid what he used to have. And I said, it's a Tycho Rebound. And he's like, Tycho Rebound, yes! And so we immediately hit up eBay. And I saw this one available for spares or parts, and I was like, yeah, let's make a terrible financial decision. Now, full disclosure, I paid about £30, including shipping for it, which is maybe too much. I don't know what vintage toys are actually worth, but also it doesn't run. So, if the sick advert did not explain exactly what this thing is, it's a remote control car with tank control. So you've got right drive and left drive, and the remote control for it gives you said tank controls. And so it can spin around and it can do flips and stuff. And because of the profile for it, if it falls over or flips over, you just keep driving. It's awesome. So these things were amazing because gone were the days where you had to keep where the car would fall over and you'd have to run over to it and pick it up and put it upright again. This one, you could not get this thing stuck. That was part of the game, was trying to get it stuck by doing the most ridiculous flips possible, you know. You take this up to the woods and it's a ball. I don't know why I'm trying to sell this thing to you. None of you guys are buying this. Anyway, whatever. So, really good time. So I bought this. It's apparently a non-runner. I can't test it right now because I've got to find a 9-volt battery for the remote. And also its own battery pack. This is a 6-volt NiCad battery. This is probably knackered. Who knows? But yeah, so this was the battery pack for it. You got a charger for it here. UK plug. Thank you very much. So that slots into there. And you'd leave this bad boy plugged in overnight. And then the next day, that comes out. You open the hatch up on the back there, and that guy slides in. There we go. Close that. There we go. And you get, can't remember how much it used to run for, but you get a decent run time with this thing, unless you drove it through too deep of a puddle and drowned it, and then you'd have to leave it to dry overnight. So, that's the intro, folks. I'm going to roll the graphics, and we'll get back, and when we come back to this thing, we'll do some testing, figure out what we need to do, and see if this is actually viable at all. See you after the cut. Right, let's do some assessment and see if we can figure out where we're starting from with this thing. So, I've done a little bit of poking already, and I'll just show you what I've discovered. So the battery, 6-volt NiCad battery, negative is on the right and positive is on the left. So let's just measure that to see if it's got a charge in it. And when we check it, we can see that the battery is sitting at about 6.6 volts. So that's pretty good. So obviously it's been charged up at some point. Maybe the seller charged it up to try and see if the car would work before they sold it. And if we assume that they charged it up for a while back, tried it out, then put it on sale, you know, must have been 2 weeks ago in the time taken for it to get to me. So it's held its charge for a couple of weeks. So it looks like the battery isn't completely shot. Like it might be that its capacity is significantly degraded and it doesn't actually last very long, but the fact that it's showing 6.6 volts mean that we should get some kind of reaction out of the car. Okay, that's fine. So what about the controller? Right, I don't have a 9-volt battery to hand right now. However, I can power this from a DC bench supply. So what I'll do is I'll just attach a negative croc clip in there. And I'll just hold my positive probe against the positive in there. Try and get this into a way where I can actually hold it all in a stable way. That should do. Right, let's turn on my power supply. And right, I left it in the on position, so we've got a red light on the controller. So the controller is on and it's drawing 16 milliamps. And if I send a signal from it, that jumps up to 30 milliamps. And same thing goes if we do something else with it. What happens if I do 2 directions? Yeah, same deal. So it looks like the controller is working. The controller looks like it's doing stuff. It's turning on and it's drawing more current when we actually press on one of the levers. So it looks like it's transmitting. So that suggests to me that the controller works just fine. So far, so good. And also, we have got the correct controller because it's a 40 megahertz controller. And this is the 40 megahertz version of the car, which is what the 40 means there. And at some point there was probably a label down in the battery base. Oh, there it is. Yeah, it says 40 megahertz down there. So we know that we've got a matching controller for the car. These things aren't paired together like modern ones are. They usually came in 2 flavors, a 40 megahertz and a 27 megahertz, I think. So that seems fine. However, when we put the battery in the car, the power switch is in the on position. And, oh, damn it, now I have to do this again. Here we go. Right, when we try and get the car to do something, there's no response at all. So, yeah. And the other thing that I've noticed is that I'm not hearing any noises at all. There's no whine, there's no twitch. It doesn't make any sound whatsoever. So that leads me to believe like there's no broken gear in there or anything like that. Maybe the motor is seized, but also I'd expect that it has 2 motors in it. Well, we'll find out in a sec, actually. I think it's going to have 2 motors in it, and I can't believe they both seized. So let's take this thing apart and see if we can see any visual problems inside. Full disclosure, I don't really know what I'm doing with this thing. I'm just going to see how far I can get. So let's take these screws out and open this thing up. I did used to take one of these apart. My friend and I, we had one each, and we also had like a scrap one, which was damaged. And we had one which we had 2 40 megahertz controllers and a scrap 40 megahertz car, and we used to both control it at the same time, which was very funny. So I don't think they're too complicated, because we used to mess around with like this stripped out one with all the covers off. Aha. Wow, that battery contact is really corroded. I wonder if it's just not getting power. Maybe it's that simple. So yeah, there's our 2 motors, and looks like the drivetrain is contained in these sections. And there's exposed screws on those, so that might be quite possible to get to. I'm going to undo the antenna, and I'm going to take the control board out and just have a quick look at that, just to see what condition it's in. Then I think what I might do is just try applying some power. Aha. Alright, we've got some gnarly looking corrosion on that. It's got some kind of moisture on it. Let me zoom in. I'm trying to figure out if that's water. Surely it would have dried out by now. It might be water, or it might be like lube and stuff that's just leaked out of everywhere. Let's just clean this thing up first and see if it comes good. What I think I'll do is I'll just desolder all of these wires so we can get the board off, and I'll throw it into an ultrasonic cleaner just to get the rubbish off of it, and we'll see what happens. Ow. You know, I think that might be WD-40 on there. I wonder if perhaps a previous owner just tried drowning it in WD-40. Well, I would be worried about putting this switch into an ultrasonic cleaner because it'll wash out any like lube and stuff, but I doubt there's anything left in it anyway. So, yeah, let's YOLO it. And guessing these are power resistors. Yeah, 58 ohm, 2 watt power resistors, I think that is. That's probably just current regulation that controls how much power can go to the motors. Then we've got these MOSFETs that actually control motor power, I'm guessing. I don't know much about how this circuitry works, but it's going to be something along those lines. Okay, right. It's after hours at the moment, and I really didn't want to warm up the ultrasonic, so I just put it in cold for a minute. And it's cleaned up a little bit. You know, like it hasn't removed all the rust, obviously, but whatever. But interestingly, after shaking all of the dirt and dust off of it, it has revealed quite a couple of dry joints, dry solder joints. So I'm just going to get my soldering iron and just run it across all of those and just reflow as many as I can, I guess. So, yeah, we're going to need some fresh solder. I'm going to put this in a vise. There we go. Right, I've just gone over every join on that board, so there's definitely no cracked solder joins on that. Let's put it back into the car and see if anything has changed. Checking again, but no change from the controller. Let's see. So now comes the part where I'm not really sure how to progress with my diagnostics. And we need to find somewhere to probe where we can see if it's doing anything. So I'm going to start just poking around on this board to see if I can find anything at all. I started out by probing the transistors that are driving the motors. Each motor is driven by an NPN and a PNP transistor on the positive and negative, with a pair for forward and another pair for reverse, making 4 total per motor. My probing reveals that the transistors set a 5-volt DC bias on the motor, and either the positive or negative is pulled low to drive in either direction. There are 2-watt power resistors that limit the current. These voltages all look normal, and with the car switched off, I'm seeing the expected forward diode drop on each transistor as well, indicating that none of them are burned out, so this all looks fairly normal. I had a quick look at the transistors, and I pulled up a datasheet for both of them, and they appear to be just standard commodity power amplifier transistors. So if there were any problems with these in the future, they would be fairly trivial to replace. You could probably find very common parts to fix one of these up if you had got exploded transistors. So I'll unsolder the wires to this motor here, which is this drive. which I'm not sure which way is forward on here. So yeah, good luck everyone. But let's just see if the motor actually functions. Oh, God. Okay. Let's voltage clamp that. 1 volt. All right, that's 200 milliamps. All right. Okay, so... All right, that's enough of that. Stop. Cool. Okay, so that motor works. I guess I could try the other one, but I've no reason to believe that doesn't work. So the controller board is definitely the problem then. All right. At this point, I spent a long time poking around the board, looking for voltages that changed when pressing a direction on the controller. Basically, any sign that the car was receiving signals at all. And then this happened. Ah. Something is happening when I Okay, hold on. Have I had it working, but it just needs the antenna? I just didn't think it would need the antenna at such short range. Where is the antenna wire? Hold on, I'm putting everything back on because I think it is actually working. It just needs the antenna, even at point blank range. Okay, let's just move the antenna so it's not there. All right. Okay, cool, it works. Rad. So it must have just been those dry joints. Cool. What I'm going to do next, I'm going to clean up all of the bodywork. There's, get rid of all of the mud and the muck. This is obviously not going to be... I'm not going to restore these. This isn't a restoration project, but I may as well just clean it while I'm here. Because whatever. And yeah, I'll see what I can do about the interior, and we'll put that back together again. So then the next project will be to see how we can improve it. Hell yeah! Still feels like it's got poke in it, man. The signal's kind of naff, but like if I straighten out this antenna, that'll probably help that. Cool. While all of that is drying, I'm going to take off one side, the wheels on one side, and I want to open up one of these gearboxes and just have a look inside. I don't really know what I'm expecting to find, but I just want to see what state they're in, I guess. And I'm curious as to whether the gears could be modified in any way. And then also, I'm probably just going to see if they can be cleaned up and just put some silicone spray in there just to quieten down the drivetrain a little bit. So let's have a look. I might regret this intensely, but good luck, everyone. Okay, right, so yeah, as expected, it's just a whole bunch of gears in there. And it looks like the grease on this has held up pretty well, actually. The downside is I was possibly hoping that I might see some way where I could change the gear ratio, because if I'm going to be giving this thing more power, it would be good if I can allow it to go faster, because it's going to be somewhat restricted by that gear ratio. However, the whole system moves pretty freely, and there's a little bit of dust around the outer gears, but not really that much to see. It looks pretty good. And also, of course, you know, none of the gears are missing teeth or anything like that. They're all in good shape. I guess if I wanted to change the actual gearing, I could make this initial pinion gear slightly larger and this outer ring slightly smaller. That would increase the whole, the actual drive ratio. I have no idea how you would calculate that, but that's how you would do it. So that's kind of interesting. I'll keep an open mind about that. The problem is as I work on this project, I'm rapidly getting into the stage of, oh, there's not really that much wrong with this thing, and there's not a whole lot that I can really think of to do with it. I kind of had this vision that I was gonna overhaul it and do heavy modifications, but given what I'm working with and my knowledge level for RC, which is basically 0, I'm like, we've got the thing running. I guess we're just going to give it a different battery and let her rip. Right, I'm going to open up the controller just to have a look at the inside, but also just because I want to clean up all of the plastics, and the easiest way to do that is just to take all of the plastics out from the electronics and just throw them all into the kitchen sink. So let's open this guy up. And also, it's just an excuse just to have a look inside, really. Probably going to be pretty simple, but you never know. Cool. Right. Yep, those will come out. Can clean those up. And yeah, even simpler board in here. Oh yeah, that confirms. I don't know why, but I thought these things had potentiometers in them, but no, they are just leaf springs on contacts. So there is no granularity. There is just simply go or don't go. I cleaned up the controller a little bit just by cleaning up the front fascia and such. The levers themselves are actually just discolored from like UV exposure and stuff like that, so I couldn't make those go back to a nice clean gunmetal silver. But I have also added some silicon lube in there, so they're a lot quieter now. There's still some action sounds on there, but that horrible squeak that they had that you might have heard in the initial test video, that's nice and gone, and they feel nice and smooth now. Then as for the battery, I've got a nice 9-volt battery to go in there, and I have 3D printed a new cover. I was going to design this myself, and I was actually quite looking forward to doing so, but just before I got started, I was like, you know what, I should probably check printables, because you never know. And hey ho, yeah, someone has already designed a replacement cover for this. I've just printed this in PLA, and I didn't change my bed to the matte bed, so it doesn't match super well, but whatever. If I was doing a proper restoration job, I could print this in ABS plastic with a matte finish, and then it would probably look a lot better, but this is good enough for now. Stops the battery from falling out. So the car is kind of fixed at this point, but I want to do more. Most people replace the NiCad battery with NiMi, which will have more current output and a bigger capacity, but I want something stronger. I want LiPo. But before we just plug a LiPo battery into it, we should consider if that's a good idea and what effect that might have. So let's start by thinking about the stock battery. It says 6-volt NiCad, but what does that actually mean? Well, nickel-cadmium cells are very old chargeable chemistry. They're 1.2 volts per cell, and if I compare a AA cell to this pack, you can see that it's probably got 5 AA cells in series, which gives us that 5 volt nominal output. AA NiCad cells are somewhere around 600 to 800 milliamp hours, and given that this thing is from the mid-90s, I'm guessing this one's more like 500 to 600. So what we really have here is a 6 volt maybe 500 or 600 milliamp hour battery. It'll be able to do big burst currents to spool up the motors, but it's really not going to have a lot of sustained current, and the runtime is kind of bad for its size. Now, lithium ion, or lithium polymer, is 3.7 volts per cell, so we'd run 2 cells in series for a 7.4 volt nominal battery. That's only a touch higher than the NiCad, although full charge is going to be more like 8.4 volts versus like 7 from the NiCad. So we're getting a little bit spicy, but probably nothing it can't handle. Those transistors are good for like 20 volts, and they can do 5 or 8 amps, so we're good there as well. The part I'd be most concerned about are the power resistors, but well, we'll see. To build my battery, I dug through my used laptop batteries, and I found one with cells that are about the right size. I opened it up and took out 2 cells. Don't try this at home, kids. Disassembling batteries is dangerous. Anyway, I take the cells together and I wire them in series, and then I hotwire the whole battery into the car's circuit board, bypassing the stock power cables. I've left them in place though, because I can charge the battery by stabbing these contacts with my bench power supply. I would have added disconnect plugs, but as I've said before, this isn't really a restoration job. I'm just having some fun with an old toy from my childhood. That being said, I might revisit this in the future to tidy it all up. But for now, the only thing left to do is to take it down to the local skate park and tear the place up. The Rebound is as much fun as ever to play with, although it did struggle a little bit for grip in the wet. I'm slightly disappointed that the LiPo power hasn't really changed the feel of the car. I think all it's really done is improve the runtime. Most likely we'd need to change those power resistors to unlock more power, but I think I'm going to call it here for now. I'd love to come back to this in the future to do more with it, so if you're an RC nerd and have thoughts on what motors or ESCs could be wired into this thing, then let me know in the comments. For now, I'll see you next time.